Hello, everyone. Welcome to another UX review. We have Walden and Roxanne here today to talk about the new breadcrumbs and item switcher. For those of you who haven't seen, we had a few demos already about our new vertical navigation that you'll be able to see in the next version of Foreman. And as a result, we got some suggestions, some complaints. We'll talk about some of these today, and we would be glad to get your feedback. Questions, as usual, on IRC or on the live chat for YouTube. Roxanne?
Great. So glad to be back. So I guess one thing, a little piece of feedback first that I oftentimes hear from users when I visit is that they're oftentimes they don't always feel like not the main navigation, but some navigation is contextually very aware or accurate. And I think one of the things that could help alleviate this is the introduction of breadcrumbs. So instead of the current two-pane view, which for anyone who's, maybe if I'm using the wrong terminology, is when you click on a table and the table sort of condenses to the left-hand side with the content being on the right-hand side and an option to close, that at times that can be a little jarring for users. And so if we could perhaps evolve from that to a breadcrumb style with the functionality preserved to switch between items that were siblings that were already in that list, because I know that some people do like being able to switch between the table items, which is available in the two-pane view. We want to keep that for this particular interaction. So we can have, I hope all that made sense. If not, we can talk about it more. But I think what will help is that Walden does have something to show that I believe he has implemented in some of his work. That again, yeah, Walden, let's bring that up, because that way people can see what we're talking about. I know that's sometimes helpful for me.
All right. Yeah. So this item switcher and the breadcrumbs have been implemented on the Catello side of things, but not the Foreman side yet.
Walden, could you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
I'll also remind anyone who's watching this later that YouTube defaults to video quality that is not great to see these demonstrations, so please change that.
All right. So I was on this packages page. I clicked on this first package, and up here you'll see these breadcrumbs, and then there's this icon here, which when you click on it, shows you all the other things in that same type with pagination at the bottom. So if you can search, and then you click on that item, and it takes you to the packages page for that thing.
Right.
Pretty short demo, but I'll turn it back over to you, Rox.
I was just going to point out that I think if we want to expand on that at any point, right, like if you went down another level, you could potentially have that active breadcrumb, right? So theoretically, say it went to cat, I'm just making stuff up here, but say there was some other sort of, you went somewhere else after cat that was still within this, right? You could have 3 levels of breadcrumbs, and I think it's pretty standard. I think most people should understand how the breadcrumbs work, in that, you know, you're able to click on any of the previous items to take them back to where they were. Those breadcrumbs also very nicely allow for the user to still maintain and understand how they got to where they are, which is, like I said, a complaint that I do hear sometimes. That, yeah, perfect, thank you. It is a complaint that I do hear sometimes from users, is that some, not all, but some of the two-pane view closing buttons do take them places that they didn't originate from, and that is very confusing to them. So I think this is hopefully a pretty simple concept, and obviously we'd love to hear a little bit more about what people's thoughts are on this. It does, I'm sure there are technical implications, but I know also from just a UI layout standpoint, it's also, it is different from what is currently happening. Another point, I guess I just want to mention this as well. Two-pane view essentially takes up a certain number of pixels with that left-hand column table. I think that's fantastic when there's a substantial amount of switching going on, but that is not the feedback I'm receiving. And so we're able to dedicate more of the page space to the content, the specific content that for the content that they've clicked on, for the item they clicked on. So in that sense, it offers a little more flexibility in terms of perhaps being able to do more or different layouts, being able to fit more content if necessary. And the fact that, we are moving to vertical nav, or the two-pane view would introduce a vertical on a vertical. And I don't personally find that very aesthetic, but I also could see situations where it probably also isn't, just doesn't, I don't think they would jive well together, perhaps if there's extremely limited screen space. Walden, do you have any thoughts on that? I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking.
No, I think you basically covered what my thoughts are on it. Yeah, just that with two-pane being there with vertical navigation, I couldn't think of a page offhand. I need to drink some more coffee that Foreman two-pane is on. So we could kind of show, especially with this text being so large now, how scrunched everything would be if this were. I mean, you can, I guess maybe just use your imagination. I mean, you can see how much of the page, if the menu's out, and then you have a table with items in it. I mean, it starts taking.
Yeah, and so just to quickly interrupt you, on the Foreman side, for example, installation media uses two-pane view. Most of them actually use two-pane view. I'm assuming any operating system does. Most of them
does as well.
Yeah, most of them do use it, and they are inconsistent from a close standpoint. Like sometimes there's an X, sometimes there's a close button.
Yeah, the thing is that this is a new sandbox. I was trying to think of something I would have that actually had items in it in two-pane, but.
And I mean, I'm trying to think based on my experience, but the whole two-pane view pattern is not very common. Usually people would resort to a breadcrumb. I would opine that is probably a far more common interaction pattern than the two-pane view. Please feel free to disagree with me. But the two-pane view is definitely something that I don't think is as common.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I will say, if we're going to go ahead and start jumping into kind of feedback on this, is that I have seen some feedback about this icon not being entirely intuitive. I don't know what would be better, but I did see an email about this yesterday.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. That's totally fair feedback. We had really the visual design team had a lot of big discussions around this icon. We played with a bunch of different ones. I don't think that. I think it's certainly possible more could be done, right? Like, what if we treated even the text on repository slightly differently, or anything to draw more attention to it?
I'm just going to switch because I have operating system with two-pane and the vertical navigation. Walden, if you wanted to say something about that.
Thank you, Ori. Yeah, so, I don't know what width your screen is right now, but, when you start getting smaller widths, it does become difficult to use. And as Rox was saying, the column right there for the operating system itself is, yeah, okay, so that's nice that it actually falls underneath it. But that title column was not really providing that much usefulness unless you're constantly switching.
Right, and I even think, you know, even if you divorce vertical nav out of this, there's still the issue of, I think, kind of what you were saying anyways, if your screen size is small, I mean, the two-pane view breaks down pretty quickly.
I don't see questions for now on the channel or on the live chat.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm sure there's much larger implications for this. And you know, when people get a chance to watch this, or if people have questions later, or, you know, suddenly something bubbles to the top, we'd obviously love to hear about it. I think ideally we get to a point where, you know, we get that consistency all the way through, you know, leaves the users less confused, leaves them with a certain expectation that's fulfilled every time, which I think generates satisfaction. That's sort of my, you know, what I'd love to get to.
Okay, since we don't have any questions right now, thank you, Walden and Roxanne. Thanks to everyone who's joined, and to anyone that is watching this later. You can send us questions on IRC in the YouTube comments or on Twitter. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.